Committee's meeting today to hear the testimony of the consequences of federal land management along with the U.S. border to rural communities and national security. Under Committee Rule 4F, any oral opening statements at hearings are limited to the chairman and the ranking minority member. Therefore, I ask unanimous consent that all other members' opening statements be made part of the record if they are submitted to the subcommittee clerk by 5 p.m. today. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Also, I ask unanimous consent that the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Gohmert, when he arrives, be allowed to sit with the subcommittee and participate in the hearing. There are no objections. Okay, no objection. That'll be allowed. I'll now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Today, we have the opportunity to hear testimony from witnesses that must live with the consequences of federal land management every day of their lives. While there certainly are benefits to living near responsibly managed federal lands, easy access to recreation, economic boosts from tourism, and the opportunity to work the land to provide a family, there are also drawbacks that in recent years have increasingly threatened the very existence of our rural communities, our farming, ranching, and timber families, and the security of our nation. This committee has documented time and again countless instances where the Department of Interior and its land managers have conducted themselves with little or no accountability to our nation or to the communities they directly serve. We've seen the devastating impact that draconian federal timber harvest restrictions have had upon rural communities. Massive numbers of employees making good livings for healthy families lost everything, including their homes, when companies were put out of business by uncaring bureaucrats. While the federal government's payments to offset those losses to these communities have kept schools open, we all know that these paltry measures are not enough. The real solution is to allow responsible forest management to proceed so that we can put people back to work, focus on the business of restoring the health of our nation's forests. In addition to the abominable treatment of our timber communities, the tragically poor schools resulting from federal land that provides no taxes and termination of healthy harvesting and replanting, our governments fail to deal with the unprecedented and tragic humanitarian and national security crisis that occurs each day along our northern and southern borders. It's a fact that drug cartels and human traffickers have long used our unsecured borders to conduct their operations, and thousands of people have died as a result. Our unsecured borders also create a national security vulnerability that should not be tolerated. But because the federal government has chosen to favor environmental regulations over national security interests and human lives, this emergency continues. The flow of traffic across our unsecured borders has caused very real and very negative impacts upon our borderlands. Tons of litter, debris, abandoned vehicles dot the landscape, and vulnerable habitats that Congress has sought to protect have been trampled and destroyed. Traffickers and drug lords could care less about bats, ocelots, or Sonoran pronghorn. And yet, land managers at the Department of Interior have blocked Border Patrol from accessing these lands so they can secure our borders, enforce our laws, protect our lands, save human lives, and our precious species. To be fair, it does appear that Interior is finally beginning to recognize that a secure border benefits all federal interests, and documents received by this committee indicate that there has been an increased dialogue between Interior and Homeland Security. However, the Department of Interior has taken too long to provide border access to our border agents, and the integrity of our lands and national security are jeopardized. For example, on April 11th, the Department of Interior and Homeland Security finally announced that 3 rights-of-way permits had been issued so that DHS could improve communications equipment in the Cabeza Preta National Wildlife Refuge. This area has long been a dangerous dead zone for our Border Patrol agents, and this technology that covers less than 100 square feet at each of 3 locations will finally give agents the ability to call for backup and assistance in unsafe situations. The fact that Interior and DHS work together seems like a great success until you look at the history of this project and realize the finding of no significant impact dates back to 2013, and this project has been on the books at Interior since at least 2011. That's right, Interior's inability to work expeditiously with DHS for 5 years on this critical security project that, again, impacts less than 300 square feet of federal property, unnecessarily put the lives of our border agents in jeopardy for at least 5 years. If our Department of Interior defines this as success, it explains why so few endangered species have been rescued. I thank our witnesses for being here, and I'm hopeful that they can bring some much-needed perspective to inform this committee. As Walden, you pointed out a couple of times that this administration, including Secretary Napolitano, always said you build a 12-foot wall, people will use a 14-foot ladder. So I want to applaud the Obama administration in their new jobs program that was announced this morning. Obviously, it's a jobs program in the ladder market, because they announced this morning they want to increase the height of the fence around the White House by 5 feet. Obviously, that's a jobs program to build taller ladders for the Washington, D.C. area, and hopefully there'll be plenty of people employed both to raise the height 5 feet around the White House and then also to construct the ladders. As I have mentioned to the Secret Service head before in another hearing in another committee, either the fence around the White House does not work and needs to be completely removed, or it's true that fences actually do work when constructed appropriately, and we should have one to protect ourselves on the border. Ms. Walden, you had also mentioned that you see the Border Patrol everywhere, and I would humbly submit that's part of the problem. They can be seen in areas where the public can go. The problem is the drug traffickers go in the area where you can't readily go without getting arrested or getting in trouble. And those are the areas the drug traffickers are the only ones that get to use. And that is why we see the footage from the Chilton's cameras showing drug traffickers just having free access back and forth. Mr. Andrews, I wanted to ask, last year I made a request both from DHS and Department of Interior for documents and communications related to Border Patrol access to federal land and cooperation on the declaration of the Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks Monument in 2014. Were you aware of that request?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Do you know how many of your own personal documents were supplied by the Department of Interior?
I don't know the page number, not a lot, but
yeah, basically there were 2. That seemed rather improbable, but as I mentioned, we made a request for the same type documents from the Department of Homeland Security, and it was the same document request as the Interior Department got, and they provided a vast number of documents from you, to you, from you. And so I just wanted to ask, are you aware that the possibility exists in the next administration that people who refused or obstructed legitimate production requests could be answering with their jobs, if not more? You realize that's a possibility when you get a request, right?
I didn't know that, no, but I do now.
Yeah. So well, let me ask you this. When did Interior notify the Border Patrol that the Oregon Mountain Desert Peaks Monument would be created?
I don't think I could answer that. I wasn't really involved in the designation.
Well, our document from the day of the proclamation shows that you were unable to supply the proclamation to the Border Patrol because it was being, and I'm quoting, held close, unquote. But ultimately, the Border Patrol did not get to have input, as the memorandum suggested that there would be. And I know everybody keeps talking about the memorandum of understanding, but when a national monument is just about to be declared by executive action, it really seems that if border security, national security, if people like the Chilton's security is being considered, that Border Patrol would be asked for input. And apparently that didn't happen until it's too late.